was just at a point in my career where I really wanted to widen my horizons, and I wanted to kind of see what else was out there. I thought to myself, if I'm going to do this, it has to be now, because I didn't have like a mortgage, I didn't have kids, like I was kind of very unfettered, and I think I wanted a bit of an adventure. I did the placement at the beginning of 2015. It was for 6 months, and I was in London, kind of central London. After that 6 months, just luckily I kind of was able to kind of stay on it scot-free. So they employed me for, I think, including that placement, I guess it was like a total of 3 years before I decided to come back to Australia. The placement was for 6 months for $50,000 to, live in London, which, got me by for a little bit of time at scot-free. And it just covered things like, accommodation, because, the London rental market was so kind of pricey, and, living expenses. So it just allowed me, I guess, to concentrate on the placement at scot-free without having to really worry about, gosh, how am I going to, afford this tube ticket? How am I going to afford to eat? It just really allowed me to kind of throw myself completely into the placement, and also kind of that social networky life, that London film and television industry, there's lots of opportunities for that. Out of the scot-free placement, I, did get a really kind of rigorous look at what it takes to develop a script, for instance, and what it takes to get a project up, and what the marketplace was like in the UK, Europe, and to some extent America. I really learned to kind of pitch, I think, because you had to pitch internally all the time. If you read something and you really liked something, you had to be able to kind of pitch it in order to get other people excited. One of the more kind of surreal things that happened to me at scot-free was that I was doing script coverage for Ridley, which involved, reading books that, he was interested in, and, reading scripts that studios would send. And so it was kind of very, very surreal for someone who, I guess hadn't had access to this kind of like, like the scripts written by these major writers, and to be, asked to give my opinion on them was kind of crazy. I kind of remember guys sitting there going, oh God, how did I get here? I worked on some projects at scot-free that were really fun, like Mindhorn, which was a British comedy, The Aftermath, which was a post-World War II drama. I worked on Taboo, which was a show with Tom Hardy, and I co-produced India in a Day at scot-free. Since my scot-free placement, it really kind of pivoted me towards scripted, and since then I've held kind of exclusively scripted roles. So I worked at Screen Australia as a development executive. I became head of development at Lingo Pictures after that, and now I'm a commissioning editor of scripted at SBS. I would say to people who want to apply for Enterprise that it's a unique opportunity because you get an insight into what it's like at a production company. So you're there with everyone as they're having those development conversations, those meetings about scripts and IP. You're getting that feedback. You're understanding, what the market wants. You're getting to look at budgets and finance plans and seeing how all the money comes together. You're hearing these conversations or having these conversations with, the money people, commissioners. It's all this information that you wouldn't necessarily get from not being there. In terms of placements, you can't really beat it. You get paid to learn, really, and it's such a unique opportunity, and I think everyone should just jump at it.